time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
No fear, no fear, no fear, no fear here on Declare Your Independence of me, Ernest Hancock. Another week of analyzing what's up. And I tell you, this weekend, me and a lot of my close friends from back in the day, we've been activists for a long time, doing this a couple decades, and we kind of gathered a little bit, went around the state looking for land, somewhere to survive this thing. We're going to get mobile, do something. I mean, we're sitting around. We've been anticipating this from a young age for a long time, and we knew what to look for. It's going to be an enormous spike in commodities. We knew that you're going to see inflation going out the window. The thing is that in about 4 or 5 years ago, because they have a cost of living adjustments for a lot of entitlements based on whatever the inflation rate is on something, so what do? They just take energy and food off. Yeah, we don't have any inflation as long as you don't go anywhere or eat. So I'm going, wow, man, that's a bad sign. Bad sign. Stopped reporting the money supply. These are all signs that we knew were precursors to what was coming. Well, what's coming? Oh, man, the state's not going to go quietly into that good night. Oh, heck no. They want to make sure that they be in charge. Well, I'm reminded of, the kind of the reading that we would do, the understanding that we came to, and a lot of the revelations that we had as young activists that just looking for the truth. And I met last spring in New Hampshire at the Liberty Forum. One of the speakers there was also Anthony Gregory. Now, he's with the Independent Institute. He lives in Oakland right now, and he's been doing, he's been traveling around the freedom community quite a bit, and the think tanks and so on, writing. He does a lot of stuff, like on Lou Rockwell, article I was just reading this morning, Lies Are the Health of the State. We'll talk about that a little bit. But Anthony Gregory, man, the boy's got skills when it comes to writing. I got you there, Anthony?
Yeah, Ernie, it's great to be on the show again, and thanks for having me.
It's always a pleasure to talk to you, and you're a young man. I remember they were calling me a young man until I was 35, so get used to it. But the one thing that I wanted to get was your perspective as someone that grew up coming into, even in your teen years and early 20s and so on, you were writing a lot of the, I've been reading your stuff for a long time. When I met you, I was shocked at how young you were. So I'm going, okay, where, from your perspective, and the research and being with the Independent Institute, we had Ivan Elan on just a couple weeks ago, and I'm going, where do you think we're at? Is it time to run for the hills? Am I kind of late in finding the place to plant this spring, or what?
Well, there are a lot of people who've decided to run for the hills or even leave the country, and I think that's obviously it's an individual decision, and I don't think that it's an alarmist decision. I think that it's a somewhat reasonable, calculation of risk. I haven't decided to run for the hills. I do recognize that in the event of the dollar actually collapsing, actual civil unrest, some of the stuff that we sometimes fear might be coming. If that does happen, it would be pretty horrible to be in the cities, especially, and that's. I'm in Oakland, so I'm not looking forward to that. But I don't know. Some would say that I've been short-sighted in this. I certainly wouldn't want to. I wouldn't want to discourage anyone from taking such precautions. But
well, how close are we? Give me, in your article. Let's talk about that a little bit. That'll get us springed up and what we need to talk about. government lies? Why do they lie? How much do they lie? At what point will they stop lying? I mean, is that kind of the default nature of government? What's up?
Well, I think it's the default nature of government. I mean, we both understand I've definitely heard you talk about this, about the criminal nature of the state, or the inherently immoral nature of the state. And we have some friends who like to believe there could be a just, small, libertarian-ish government. And maybe it's theoretically possible to have a state that doesn't lie, but it seems to me that it is part of the nature of the state. Since the state is an engine of plunder, of monopolization, of law enforcement, which really means, as Albert J. Knox said, it's a monopoly on crime. Because if we do what the state does, it's considered a crime, but the state can do it legally, taxing, jailing, bombing, conscripting, and so forth. So the state is an inherently, monopolistic, plunderous, in most cases murderous organization. And so lying, I mean, of course it lies. It's difficult to persist without lying, because the force alone cannot sustain the state. There needs to be propaganda. There needs to be a public ideology that generally supports the state. And since we know the state is such a horrible thing, it can only persist with a foundation of propaganda and lies. So, I think the state will always lie.
Well, there's, it's more than just giving untruths. It's about adopting principles that were not part of their mandate. I mean, not part of the deal. Because I know that you'll speak to the Constitution a lot and so on, but, what side do you take on that? Because in your article, you're talking about Judge Napolitano points out a lot of times that there is, this is the deal. Well, we're the Supreme Court and we're changing the deal. We're going to be activist judges since back in the early 1800s. I mean, we'll just do whatever we want to do because we can do it. And what gave them the power to do it? Well, the Constitution. Well, that's one thing Butler Schaefer at the Freedom Summit, he makes very clear, and a lot of this is probably his fourth, fifth time that he's spoken at the summit. He's always a great addition. And his thing is, he goes, I'm a constitutional law professor. Everything that you're living under is constitutional. You know why? Because they said it was. So it's not really that hard to understand. They'll do whatever it is that they want to do because they can. So my question is I'm going, is the... I don't know. Here comes emails. Is the Constitution itself a lie? Are they there to defend our rights, or is it there just the excuse or the promise of defending our individual rights was what got their central plan in place? So and then in your article, you go on to talk about, some of the, these weren't saints, this founding fornicators, as one of my friends, Greg Tivnan, would say, and he always referred to them. I mean, in the 90s, and he didn't use that word, but, he'd say that, and I'm going, wow, man, that's kind of harsh. And you got to break this idolization of these people. They were just people. And it's so I want to get back to that point. Is the Constitution or government itself a lie in and of itself? Because it's always a promise for them to exist. There is a promise that they make to us. We're going to act in your best interest by fill in the blank. Well, they never do that. I mean, so is government itself a lie, or are you thinking that there might be some way we can salvage this concept?
Well, I think, the state is a lie. I think that there are elements of the modern U.S. government that are so bad that even the Constitution would be better. But in principle, I agree with Butler. I mean, what are the first words in the U.S. Constitution? We the people. Mm-hmm. That's a lie. It wasn't the people. It was a gang of corporatists, in many cases slave-raping, neo-mercantilist, royalist, the ruling class. And some of them had some enlightened things to say. I mean, sometimes of course Jefferson had very little to do with the Constitution, but even the Jeffersonian wing of the Founding Father, club was not libertarian. It wasn't honest. It was better than the Hamiltonian.
Well, what were they? When we come back here on Declare Your Independence, we're going to find out what Anthony Gregory thinks they were. We'll be right back. You guys don't go away.